Welcome to Partner Pulse, the Quickly Hire podcast, where we explore how innovative organizations are supporting and empowering the startup ecosystem. I'm your host, Brad Morrison. In each episode, we connect the spaces, communities, and programs that help founders thrive. Whether you're running a co-working space, leading an accelerator, or building a founder community, these conversations will provide valuable insights on nurturing startup success through strategic resources and talent solutions. Thanks for joining us on the Quickly Hire podcast. I am here today with Pete Perry. Pete is a business coach, longtime friend, been a customer, but a longtime partner as well. Pete, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you. So Pete, tell us a little bit about Pete Perry Coaching.
So yeah, I coach mostly digital marketing agencies. I do a little bit of coaching for other businesses as well, but my marketing is geared towards digital marketing agencies because that's the world I came from. And what I do is I help them with all things business. So I'm not here to be your technical coach. I'm here to be your business coach. So I'm going to help you scale your business, grow your profit, grow your revenue, grow your team, and kind of go in whatever direction you want, right? So some business owners want to go in scale and, blow it up, and others want to just kind of run like a lifestyle business, and that's okay too.
What would be the general format of something like? It sounds like it's very personalized in that you're getting to know the business really well,
That's
what
right.
their goals are, and then you meet with them weekly.
So, right. So I meet every other week with them, but usually what happens almost always, here's how we do this. We start by doing a deep dive into their finances. Okay. I'll dive into their profit and loss statement specifically. I think every business owner should know by heart, should know their four numbers: revenue, cost of goods sold, fixed expenses, and then of course, profit. And in my world, I call profit the owner's pay as well as anything that's left over at the end, because to me, it all goes in your pocket in the end, right? That's profit. So we'll dive into each one of those numbers. I have them send me the profit and loss statement ahead of time. And then in the first call, we're going to dive into those numbers. I want to know which revenue streams are working and which ones aren't. I want to know if maybe there's an 80-20 situation where we should be getting rid of some revenue streams because we're just wasting marketing money on them or whatever. I'm going to look hard at their cost of goods sold, anything that costs them to fulfill their services or products. We're going to dive into that stuff. And then I'm going to look at their expenses with a fine-tooth comb and hopefully raise that profit number to something a little more enjoyable. Success story out of that is that I sat down with somebody the first time and they were actually 2 years in a row, they didn't really pay themselves. That's just a very sad story.
Unbelievable.
To be a business not paying themselves. And in fact, the second year, not only did they not pay themselves, but they had a pretty significant loss. We looked at their expenses and in 20 minutes had shaved about $30,000 in expenses. And over the next month or so, I cut their expenses by about 30%. Now they're paying themselves and they're moving forward and they're able to hire people and do things that they need to do. So it's so eye-opening to really take a look at that, because founders, especially new founders and freelancers or agency owners, whatever, they don't pay a lot of attention to the numbers that they should be paying attention to. That's something I'm seeing. The successful ones do, but the ones who are just kind of like eking along, they're not really paying attention to the numbers. So we start there, almost exclusively we start there. That gives us a nice base for what's going on in the business. The next move is I move to self-discovery. So I come from the agency world where we do discovery sessions. I flip that around and we do a discovery session on their business. So they're usually, if they're an agency, they've done a discovery session, but they've never done it for themselves. So we're talking about mission, vision, values. We're talking about a SWOT analysis, client avatar, who your audience is, what products or services you provide or want to provide. And then we do an actual marketing plan. Discovery session is really just a marketing plan. between those two exercises, we can identify where the gaps are.
Mhm.
So the gaps are going to be in places like mission, vision, values. I have a whole separate framework for attacking that. They're that either team issues. So team issues can be they're currently what I call a CEO, Chief Everything Officer, right?
I
So they're
feel
doing
that. I've been
everything.
th- I've been
Yes,
there.
we all have. We all have. So they're doing everything. They're doing way too much. And they need to hire their first person or they need to hire their next person. And they don't. We've been talking about this, Brad, for years. It's so hard for people to figure out who to hire next or first. So I have exercises around that. They many times don't really truly know who their audience is, or they need to refine it. We work on that. They're burning the candle at both ends. So we work on time management. Like I think that's one of the most important things that most founders struggle with is they're trying to do too much. So we work on time management. I have certain frameworks around that.
And just the health implications of that and the
I just gonna, yep,
relationship implications with family, and it's
absolutely.
can take an enormous toll.
100%. I'm not a health coach and I'm not a therapist,
Mhm.
but as a coach, I think every coach comes close to those lines because you do have to sound mind, sound body, sound business. I really believe that.
I love that.
And the sound mind part is feeling safe in your family life, loved one, friends, all that stuff. So it's all about balance, right? We always talk about the work life, but it's all about balance.
Mhm.
So yes, that's usually a very important aspect of what I do on a every week basis. So yeah, and then when it comes to team, I have frameworks around how to figure out who to hire next and all that stuff. So yeah,
Yeah, growing beyond yourself is always a tough, especially in a bootstrap business, which I assume most of your clients are. I want to go back to that first step or part of the
yep,
process where you're looking at P&L statements. Having been a part of acquisition deals and looking at companies and talking with clients and partners, it amazes me how often business owners, founders don't understand a basic P&L statement. They are so focused on lead generation. They're so focused on, I got to go get a client, and then I got to figure out the fulfillment process of the services or the product that I'm selling them, but they don't understand some of the basic financial literacy around owning and running a business. Is that
that's
consistent with
abs-
what?
absolutely 100%. I mean, it depends on the business, but if you're talking about digital marketing agencies, almost always they got into it because they were good at design or good at development or good at one of the things. And it just kind of grew from there. And all they ever cared about was, am I putting enough food on the table? Right? Am I bringing home enough? They didn't really think about how the numbers relate to each other and how if I keep a lid on these things, then things flow a little bit better. Knowing your numbers is number one. That's where I start with it.
What's the biggest, maybe, or a couple of big issues that you see when you're digging through that P&L for the first time?
The very first place I go is expenses.
Yeah,
To revenue, cost of goods, expenses. That's the place I go. Because you can
yeah.
almost always find things they're wasting money on, things they're spending on that they don't even remember that they're spending on, or better and cheaper vendors. And then I'll often go to cost of goods sold, which for agencies anyway is almost always just labor.
Labor. Yeah, yeah.
It's 90% labor. So I'll look there and, they'll oftentimes have really high end contractors where
Yeah.
if they just brought in somebody like from Quickly Hire, they could still do the work, probably do it better, and more of a somebody on their team thing and save money. So
That's the value, having had coaches for years in the past. That's a value that an experienced coach brings to the table, is
right.
knowing what those options are.
Yep.
Sometimes, a founder is so head down working on the business or relying on their experience they had maybe in the job they were in before they started the company. They
Right.
don't know all of the options. And then having someone that says, hey, I work with multiple clients, And here's some ways to get that accounting cost down. Here's how we handle legal. Here's what we do for hiring. Here's what we do, because you're seeing it more at scale than the one-off. I love that you start with the P&L because it's hard to hide from that. That
Exactly.
is the business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we start there, we move on to the self-discovery, and then we find between those two things, we find the biggest, there's usually more than one pain point, but we find the biggest thing to work on, or the quickest domino to knock over, right? Like, so sometimes, just saving expenses frees you up to hire the people you need to hire. So,
Right.
it's all like a jigsaw puzzle.
Can you tell me more about the mission, vision, and values? What do you see there? And is that something that most of the clients you have, do they have that in place when they come to you? Or is that something that you work with them on?
Most of them really don't
Mm.
place. So, and my secret sauce is that, so it's interesting. It's going to sound weird, but a lot of that can actually come not from here
Mhm.
or here, but from there. Meaning the people you've worked with in the past, if you ask them what value you provide and how it is to work with you, if you do it right, if you ask the right questions there, you're going to get back what your values really are. That makes sense.
It does. And I've never heard it put that way.
Interesting exercise for the values part. For instance, I've done it for my own coaching business. And one of the things, if I asked 30 people, 25 of them said, Pete, your superpower is you cut through the BS without making us feel like it was BS. And you solve the problem in the most simple and realistic way. Then you can take that and turn that into what the value is, because that's something that really is valuable to me. That's something that you don't even know that you're doing these things necessarily, but that's who you are. And values are who you are. That's what it is. So
yeah, it makes you different from other coaches. It
That's
makes
right.
you different in your approach to this. That's phenomenal. I really like that. Do you ask them to just send out a survey or
Yeah.
okay?
And not only to their clients, also to close friends, loved ones, just to
Yeah.
find out what you do differently than other people. I asked my brother and he said, well, you play a mean air guitar. So I didn't that's not a value that I'm really focused on.
Thanks for the feedback, but yeah, so
Yeah.
maybe be selective in who you talk to. Yeah.
Right.
And I think sometimes we're afraid of what we're going to get back.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. So if most people have what they think of as a mission, and usually we can tweak it. And same with a vision, we can tweak those statements, right? But values, they usually just go, well, we have a lot of integrity and we have a lot of, we're family. No, you're not. You're not a family. You're a business. Right? So when you ask your clients, what is it about me that's different, or what is it about working with us that sets things apart and exploded your business or success, whatever, they're never going to say, well, you guys work like a family. Like, that's just not right.
Yeah.
It's just not how it works.
Yeah,
So,
they're gonna focus on the how available you were, right? Speed and
the
following
value you
up and
provide.
the value
Yeah.
you provide, quality.
So
So yeah, that's good. I've been a part of internally with our own companies just going through this process of mission, vision, and values. And it's a good place to start because it really is the cornerstone of your marketing efforts before you hire. It's great to have this in place so that there's an understanding even during orientation of this is how we operate on a day-to-day basis. These are the behaviors that we use day to day. Pete, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into being a business coach.
So I started in 1999 building websites for people on the side. I had a government contract at the time. And for about 8 to 10 years, I did that on the side, and that was fine. And then when the government contract ended, I decided to go full bore into that world. So freelancer, built it up into a small agency. I've always been one of those people that wanted to have like a lifestyle kind of agency business. 2009, I decided to go all in on becoming an agency and grew my agency a little bit and hired a coach. Before I knew it, I was asked by that company to become a coach for them. And I started mentoring other agencies probably around 2016, 2017. And then next thing I knew, I was the head of coaching for that agency, that coaching company. Eventually I'm a man of a certain age, so eventually I wanted to go and do my own thing, and I broke off and did my own thing. So for the past 2.5 years now, I've been coaching on my own.
You have a decade then direct coaching
Yep, pretty
businesses.
much. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's incredible. And what do you love about your job?
So what I love the most is seeing success from the people that I'm. Not everyone that comes to a coach is in dire straits, but oftentimes they are. Like I said, the guy who wasn't paying himself was taking a loss. That's pretty dire. Or the person who is ready to go but has no clue where to put their next step, right? That's a scary place to be. So when they come to you with a problem, it's usually more than one problem, but they think they have a problem, and you can push them through that problem and then move towards success and see them move towards their goals. There's nothing more powerful than that. When I was first starting as a coach, I was running coaching calls and we did a live event, and two people I didn't know at the time. I knew them by name, but I had never seen their faces, came up to me and thanked me for my work. This was probably 2018. The one guy said he had a sticky note on his monitor that said, "What would Pete do?"
I love that.
And when he said that, not only did I get emotional and a little choked up, I said, this is what I have to do. This is what I have to do. I have to coach.
That's
So
incredible.
that was the moment. That was the aha moment that was like, okay, agency was great. Now I can have a bigger impact on the community.
Yeah.
By doing things like this. So,
yeah. So impactful, making a difference. Absolutely. That's a very fulfilling career. That's very
really
neat. Let's talk a little bit about how some of your clients have scaled their teams and your approach to doing that. So it's one of the hardest things, especially as a founder with us. That's one reason that we exist. A lot of startups can't afford a full-time employee in a certain area. So we've been able to bring that fractional talent to them. Tell us a little about the mindset maybe that the clients have, and then what you bring to the table on here's how you go and take that very difficult step of trying to trust someone, right? Because it's not you and it's the first hire outside of you, but something that you can do in a scalable way moving forward.
Okay. So I have a framework that I use, and I use it because, like you said, the chief everything officer is wearing all these hats and they don't know which hat is safe to take off or should be the first one that they take off and hand to somebody else, right? It's hard. Delegation is hard. Trust is a tough thing to build, and it's a leap of faith, really is. So what we do, I find that a lot of people, I would say almost everybody, is in some degree visual, meaning they learn visually or they have to see something in order to take action. So what I do, the framework I use, I call it the crystal ball org chart. So for most founders or people starting out, if I tell them to draw an org chart, there'll be a box at the top that has their name in it that says boss or whatever. And then there'll be maybe 2 or 3 contractors, or maybe they have one person on the team. And so there'll be maybe 2 or 3 boxes on the org chart. But I make them take off all the hats and draw a box for every hat. And where would that be? So that's the first piece. Then the second piece is, now let's look a year and a half from now. We've already set your goal, because I do a goal setting thing first. So in order to get your business there, what other pieces are not yet on this chart, right? So fill that in. If you're in 5 of the boxes, then put your name in all 5 boxes. That's okay. But put a role. So designer, developer, whatever the role is, project manager. And now we're going to color code the chart. So It's going to go green for the box that each person belongs in. So you only get one green box, and Joe only gets one green box, and Brad only gets one green box. And then the rest are different colors depending on whether they're always going to be a contractor, like your bookkeeper, maybe, or going to be a future hire. And when you start to see that all laid out in that way, it's easier to see where the problem is. By the way, in the meantime, I have them tracking their time to see where they're burning hours and where Joe and Brad are burning hours. And we can figure out which box that's not green needs to be replaced next. So, and often it's going to be either they're the CEO of the company, but they're doing development. So that's a red flag for me, right? And by the way, we color those boxes red for a reason. So that's a red flag. And then oftentimes also they're working as the project manager. So they could lighten their load. They're not doing any fulfillment other than project management. So let's get them out of project management. And that's when I turn to you guys, right? Because it is a trust thing, and they probably don't need somebody full time yet. And they also don't trust to just give everything away full time yet. So they can start with you guys at 10 hours a week and kind of gradually build up to learning how to delegate better and have somebody take over things for you. In between that step, though, I forgot that there's a job scorecard for every role. So I have them fill out a job scorecard. When one of my clients is calling you guys, they've already got their job scorecard in hand. This is what I need. And that's really based around the outcomes, 2 or 3 outcomes that they're trying to accomplish by hiring that person or filling that role.
And do those roles normally stay fractional? Are there some roles that stay fractional or contract, and then some roles where it might make sense based on their growth and the responsibility to go into full time?
It might. Yep. It might make sense as they grow to fill that as a permanent position. Yeah.
And then, of course, with looking at the P&L statement and understanding their true financial picture when that time comes.
That's right. We keep our eye on the P&L. We don't just look at it the first time.
And go, right.
Quarterly, usually. I try to get them to look at it on a more regular basis, but they will look at it with me quarterly.
Yeah, there are some elements I love of Profit First, Mike Michalowicz's book.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's one of them, is reviewing those expenses regularly to trim the fat. And that's something that I've carried with me just over the last however many years now, 8 or 9 years, 7 or 8 years, and it's been helpful. So tell a little bit about the roles that some of your clients have hired through Quickly Hire and maybe some success stories that you've seen.
I've sent them to you guys for designers, developers, SEO specialists, whatever you call an SEO person, SEOs, project managers. I think they feel like they get the most bang for the buck with a project manager because it's such an important role in their business. But I've seen lots of success with just filling those fulfillment roles. The developer just lightens their load, right? So one of my frameworks is, I call it 135. One big rock they should be working on every day as the business owner, and then 3 medium-sized stones, and then 5 pebbles, right? So, but the one big rock, by hiring a designer or a developer with you guys or a project manager, every one of my clients that I've sent to you can now focus more on that one big rock, which is usually going to be about one of the 3 things in the profit and loss statement: growing the revenue, operations, COGS, or expenses. That's the biggest impact, is it frees them up to be able to do all the things they're supposed to be doing as the business owner.
Pete, we appreciate your partnership. Thank you for sending folks our way. I'm glad to hear we have some success stories from that, and we're helping the clients that you work with thrive. Turning back to your business, what is next for Pete Perry Coaching?
I want to build a little bit more of a community. So the way it works is they meet with me every other week. They also have access to me in Slack, so they can reach out to me anytime they want, 9 to 5, because we're all about balance. They have more access to me. They can book other calls with me, but we meet every other week. Only recently did I move that into more of a mastermind as well. So we're building a little bit of a community. So the future, 2025 and 2026, I want to grow a little bit of a mastermind and community that is kind of facilitated and monitored by a coach, but there's the hive mind can do a lot of great things. So I want that to come together in the next 6 to 18 months. And that's the future for me. Yeah.
I love the evolution of what you've started. I think that is a great approach because then it crowdsources some of what we were talking about, the different options and stuff that are available, and your peer support becomes really important. And this would be across industries, right? This would be kind of founders of any type. So in the same way your client base is now.
I usually talk about digital marketing agencies because that's the world I came from. That's the community I grew up in. And that's where my marketing is. But I coach a doctor of psychology right now. I coach a bookkeeper, and I coach a travel advisor. That's the word. That's the proper term now. Travel advisor. So yeah, I coach any kind of business really. What I do has nothing to do with marketing or tech. Right. It has more to do with how to run your business, how to have good balance, mindset, stay healthy here and, here, home, and keep moving forward. Yeah.
Pete, as always, it has been fantastic catching up and talking with you. Thank you for your time today. You've given some great information, and it's fun to see the transparency in how you approach coaching and some of the issues that I think a lot of the listeners can relate to. So thank you for your time. Appreciate your partnership and look forward to having you back soon.
Thank you, Brad. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Partner Pulse. If you're part of a founder community or workspace looking to provide your members with access to exceptional fractional talent, visit quicklyhire.com to explore partnership opportunities. Be sure to subscribe for more insights on building successful startup ecosystems.